There's a god in Japan who protects your toilet. People used to pray to him before they sat down, not for blessings, for safety. His name is Kawaya-no-Kami, and his domain is waste, smell, disease, and shame. Entire families believed that if they didn't show respect before using the bathroom, something bad would happen. And that's just the start. Because if Japan has a god for poop, you won't believe what else they worship. There are kami for soup spills, broken doors, haunted futons, and rain that shows up uninvited. Some of these gods are so specific, so unnecessary, it feels like a joke, but they're not. They have names, shrines, priests, and followers. You're about to see the most bizarre, useless, ridiculously specific gods that somehow still get offerings. One of them lives in your mattress. Another shows up naked and flashing. And there's one that only leaves your house when you ask him to. So get ready. Because if you think that's strange, you haven't seen anything yet. Just so you know, in Japanese mythology, not every kami is divine in the way Western gods are. Some are spirits, some are ghosts, and some are something in between. But all of them get worshipped. Let's start with the one who sees you at your most vulnerable. Kawaya-no-Kami. He isn't a joke. He's an actual god with a defined purpose, to protect people while they defecate. In pre-modern Japan, bathrooms weren't just uncomfortable, they were spiritually dangerous. They were dark wooden structures often located outside the home, filled with insects, bad smells, and worse. It was believed that evil spirits, called kegari, were drawn to these places. Some people thought you could literally catch a curse if you relieved yourself without permission. That's where Kawaya-no-Kami came in. His job was to guard that threshold between your body and the underworld. Before entering the toilet, some families would clap their hands or bow slightly toward the door. They'd say his name out loud, not to praise him, but to let him know they meant no disrespect. In wealthier homes, protective talismans were hung in the outhouse. In others, small bowls of rice or salt were left nearby. But the connection went deeper. Women who were pregnant were taught to pray to him for an easy labor. Why? Because childbirth, like defecation, was seen as a moment when your body became open to spiritual attack. Kawaya-no-Kami was a defender of bodily functions. He watched over births, miscarriages, stomach pain, constipation, anything considered impure or vulnerable. And even today, in some remote parts of Japan, tiny shrines to this god can still be found behind houses or near old farm toilets. They're not tourist attractions. There are no signs, no explanations. But the locals remember. The offerings have stopped, but the shrine remains. Because even if no one says his name anymore, no one's brave enough to take the shrine down either. He's not here to judge your soul, just your aim. But Kawaya-no-Kami isn't the only one guarding what most people ignore. Some kami don't protect your body. They protect what falls from your plate. Kui-no-Kami is the god of leftovers. Not the feast, not the kitchen, not the harvest, just the scraps. In traditional Japanese homes, every part of a meal had meaning. Rice was sacred. Fish, vegetables, broth, each carried the energy of life. So what about the food that didn't make it into your mouth? The noodle that slipped, the grain of rice stuck to your sleeve, the soup that splashed onto the floor? That's where Kui-no-Kami comes in. He watches over the discarded, the unwanted. In some homes, especially in rural areas, families would pause after a meal and give silent thanks not only for what they ate, but for what remained. It was believed that disrespecting leftovers invited spiritual imbalance. Kui-no-Kami wasn't angry or vengeful, but he noticed. A child who threw away rice carelessly might be scolded not by their parents, but by the gods. And if too much food was wasted, illness or bad luck could follow. His presence acted as a quiet reminder that nothing should be taken for granted. Every bite had weight. Every drop had value. In some villages, Families kept a small wooden tray near the kitchen to place fallen food, not for reuse, but as an offering. A sign that they still remembered. A whisper to Kawaya-no-Kami that they hadn't forgotten what it cost to eat. Maybe next time you drop a noodle, bow your head. Because if you think food has feelings, wait until you hear what sleeps in your bed. Futon Shin is the spirit of the futon, the mattress where you sleep, dream, toss, turn, and eventually forget. Most people don't think twice before throwing out an old futon. It's stained, lumpy, worn down, and ready for the trash. But in traditional Japanese belief, that's exactly when the problem begins. After 100 years, or sometimes far less if discarded disrespectfully, ordinary objects can awaken. They become tsukumogami, spirits with memory and emotion. Futon Shin is one of them. He doesn't haunt because he's evil. He haunts because he was forgotten. People who toss out their bedding without a prayer or ritual have reported waking up at night, heart racing, breath shallow, with no reason. They hear footsteps around their bed, heavy breathing, or the soft sound of fabric shifting where no one is lying. Sometimes they stop sleeping altogether. Insomnia becomes chronic. Nightmares return. And in rare stories, the new mattress starts moving on its own. Some families began burning old futons with incense. Others buried them. But a few still keep the old ones stored in a clean corner, covered, respected, not used, but never thrown away. Because Futon Shin doesn't like being abandoned. He doesn't want revenge. He wants rest. And if you don't let him rest, he'll take yours. He's under your bed, literally, which is better than the next one, because that one waits by the door, locked or not. Dasujin is a guardian kami, often found standing between worlds, at borders, crossroads, village entrances. He protects travelers from danger, misfortune, and wandering spirits. That sounds noble enough, but in some regions, his job got smaller, much smaller. People began placing tiny statues of Dasujin, not at the edge of towns, but beside their doors. Not grand temple gates, regular doors, bedroom doors, pantry doors, closet doors. Because when those doors stuck or refused to open, the blame wasn't on humidity or hinges. It was spiritual. The belief was that invisible forces sometimes lingered between rooms, and unless you had a spiritual buffer, they could slip inside. Dasujin became that buffer. In certain villages, families carved his image into the walls near their entrances. Some used paper charms. Others placed pebbles or wooden figures on top of sliding tracks. He wasn't invited with prayer. He was stationed like a silent security guard, one that expected to be acknowledged. And if he wasn't, doors began to resist. Locks jammed, handles stuck. Entire sliding walls became immovable. Sometimes it was blamed on old wood, sometimes on Dasujin. Either way, the fix was the same: make an offering. A few grains of rice, a small whisper, a nod of respect. Some say it worked. Others say it didn't matter. But after a while, no one wanted to be the one who ignored him. Next time your door jams, maybe someone forgot the offering. And if you think that's annoying, here's a god who never leaves your house unless you tell him to. Bimbogami is the god of poverty. No one builds shrines for him. No one invites him into their home. But sometimes he comes anyway. According to tradition, Bimbogami enters quietly. He doesn't break anything. He doesn't scream. He just settles in. And once he's there, things start to disappear. First, it's the savings, then the job, then the food. Luck drains out of the house like water from a cracked jar. And yet, even though no one wants him around, you still have to show him respect. Not to keep him, but to make him leave. In some parts of Japan, families hold special purification ceremonies called Bimbogami Okuri, literally a farewell ritual for the god of poverty. They prepare small offerings of rice, sake, or salt, walk in procession toward the edge of town and ask him, politely but firmly, to get out. If they do it right, he leaves. If they do it wrong, he lingers. Some stories say he moves from house to house, staying only where he feels ignored. Others believe he's attracted to negative energy and clutter. That's why traditional New Year rituals often include cleaning every corner of the home, not for hygiene, but for spiritual eviction. Because once Bimbagami gets comfortable, he doesn't want to leave. And if you pretend he's not there, he makes himself at home. It's the only god you worship by asking him to leave. And if you think that's awkward, the next one doesn't knock at all. He just flashes. There's a spirit in Kyoto that haunts people in the most unexpected way. He doesn't chase. He doesn't even speak at first. He waits in alleyways, along riverbanks, or near empty roads late at night. And when a lone traveler passes, he appears, completely naked, silent, human-shaped, until he turns around. And where you expect to see something shameful, there's something worse. A single wide, glowing eye, not on his face, on his anus. His name is Shirim, which literally means but eye, and he might be Japan's most absurd yokai. The earliest record of him dates back to Kyoto's Edo period, where he became a recurring character in strange scroll paintings and whispered stories. But what makes Shirim so strange isn't just the anatomy. It's the fact that he never attacks, never follows. He appears, flashes his shining eye, and vanishes. That's it. The fear comes not from harm, but from pure confusion. What did I just see? Why was it there? Why me? Some believe Shirim is a spirit born from awkwardness, a prankster entity feeding on discomfort. Others say he was once a man cursed for watching women bathe, forced to become the very thing he obsessed over. But there's no violence, no curse passed on. He doesn't want your soul, just your reaction. But not every unwanted spirit wants to scare you. Some just want to make it rain when you least expect it. Aimfuri Kozo looks harmless. A small boy in traditional clothes, sandals slightly too big for his feet, and a paper umbrella that never closes. He smiles, says nothing, and wherever he walks, the sky darkens. He doesn't bring floods. He doesn't bring storms. Just rain. Constant, stubborn, unexplained rain. Crops get soaked, events get canceled, rooftops leak. And the worst part is that no one asked for it. That's what makes him different from other weather spirits. He doesn't wait for rituals or requests. He shows up on his own. In some regions, people believed that if the sky turned gray with no warning, it meant Aimfuri Kozo was nearby. Children would run outside and perform silly dances, spinning in circles or waving paper charms to drive him away. The goal wasn't to please him. It was to distract him, confuse him, or convince him to leave. Farmers even tried calling him cute names to soften his mood. But nothing worked forever. He always came back. Some villages started offering tiny umbrellas at roadside shrines as a kind of bribe. Stay away, little one. We're already wet enough. And while most yokai are feared for their danger, Aimfuri Kozo is feared for his timing. He shows up right before weddings, festivals, or harvest days, then disappears as if he was never there. Some say he doesn't mean harm. Others think he's bored. But everyone agrees on one thing. Sometimes even rain needs a leash. The next one doesn't bring water. He brings something much harder to ignore. And he doesn't wear clothes. Shinotoko, also known as the Chinshin Kami, is not subtle. He appears uninvited, usually at night, sometimes inside homes, sometimes peeking through windows. And when he does, he exposes one thing and one thing only, his massive, exaggerated phallus. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. He simply reveals himself and then vanishes. Ancient stories say he targets homes with unbalanced energy or repressed desires. But his presence was never considered harmless. Some believed that women who saw him could be spiritually infected, overwhelmed with unnatural thoughts or desires, as if his image embedded itself in the mind. To protect against him, certain villages developed a defense that might be even more shocking than the spirit himself. Entire festivals built around genital imagery. Locals would carve wooden phalluses, build shrines shaped like male anatomy, and parade them through the streets while shouting chants and laughing loudly. It wasn't perversion, it was protection. The more explicit and joyful the display, the more likely Shinotoko would be repelled. Some families even placed small phallic charms at the entrances of their homes, not as a joke, but as a spiritual boundary. It was believed that if you met explicitness with humor, the spirit lost his power, but that didn't stop him from trying. No one asked for it, but he still showed up. And if you're thinking it can't get weirder than this, wait until the next one starts asking you questions in a bathroom stall. You're alone in a school bathroom. The tiles echo. The light flickers. One of the stalls is closed. And from inside, you hear a voice. A girl's voice, soft, curious. Do you want to play? That's Hanako-san, Japan's most famous bathroom ghost. According to the legend, she's the spirit of a schoolgirl who died during World War II. Some say in an air raid, others say by suicide. Now she waits inside the third stall of the girls' bathroom. If you knock 3 times and ask, "Hanako, are you there?" she answers. Sometimes she giggles, sometimes she grabs you, and sometimes she says yes. But Hanako isn't the only one haunting the toilets. There's also Kashima Reiko. Her story is far more brutal. She was hit by a train, cut in half at the waist, and now crawls through bathrooms, asking people where her legs went. If you don't answer correctly, she takes yours. These stories aren't ancient myths. They're modern, passed around by children, whispered between classes, and occasionally adapted into games, movies, or warnings from older siblings. And yet, they carry the same spiritual weight as traditional kami. Because whether a spirit is born from a battlefield or a broken heart, once it settles into belief, it becomes real. In fact, if you know Harry Potter, you've already met a version of Hanako. Moaning Myrtle, the ghost who lives in the bathroom, cries about her death, and startles people in stalls, is nearly identical. Both are young, both died tragically, both haunt the one place where people are supposed to be alone. But unlike Myrtle, Hanako doesn't just complain. She reaches, she touches, she pulls. Japanese schools even have informal rules about avoiding certain bathrooms after dark because of spirits like these. And some students leave small offerings near the stalls. Hairpins, candy, apologies, anything to avoid attention. Because if there's one place you don't want to hear a voice, it's from the stall next to yours, and you thought flushing was scary. Maybe no god is truly useless. Every kami, no matter how absurd, came from something real: fear, discomfort, shame, or habit. The people who created these figures weren't being silly. They were trying to survive a world full of unknowns. Disease, bad weather, nightmares, poverty. When you can't control something, you name it. You talk to it. You offer it rice. And slowly, it becomes sacred. That's what happens in Japanese mythology. Even the trivial becomes divine. Broken doors, spoiled food, awkward moments, and bathroom stalls are all claimed by kami, not because they're majestic, but because they matter. Even if only for a second. Maybe it's not always about power. Sometimes it is about recognizing the little things that shape your life when you're not paying attention. So the next time you waste food, hear a knock in the bathroom, or throw out an old mattress, ask yourself if you've said thank you. Or maybe sorry. Because somewhere out there, someone might be watching. So which god protects your house? Or better yet, your toilet?